All right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now, moving on to our first discussion, nearly 25 million Nigerians are at risk of facing hunger between June and August 2023, which is the lean season, if urgent action is not taken. Now, according to the October 2022 CADA Harmonize, which is a government-led and UN-supported food and nutrition analysis carried out twice a year. Now, taking a look at that, continued conflict, climate change, inflation, and rising food prices are key drivers of the alarming trend. Food access has been affected by persistent violence in the northeast, that's the northeast states of Borno, Adama, and Yobe. And on the other hand, we also have armed banditry and kidnapping in states such as Katsina, Sokoto, Kaduna, Benue, and Niger. According to the National Emergency Management Agency, widespread flooding in the 2022 rainy season damaged more than 676,000 hectares of farmlands, which diminished harvests and increased the risk of food insecurity for families across the country. Now, right here in this studio, we have a special assistant to REFAN president and president Pasture and Livestock Feed Association, member interim management team of Federation of Commodity Association of Nigeria, that's FACAN, in person of Muhammad Ali Baba, to discuss insecurity and food crisis in the country. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Now, can you first of all help us understand, how challenging has this year been for farmers so far?
Well, truly, it's been very challenging. You have, just as you have highlighted, it's really not been easy, especially, after the last flood. Usually, farmers, after harvest, because it is long been established that it's these smallholder farmers that actually feed us. We still don't have, large-scale farmers. So these ones with quarter, half, or 1 hectare are the ones that feed us. And by and large, except with the coming of the Anchor Borrower program, they hardly have access to credit. Usually there are about 3 or 4 challenges they used to have, and that's what that Anchor Borrower came to resolve. First and foremost, because of their limited resources, they have access to poor inputs, limited or poor quality inputs. They can't even afford the relevant ones. They don't have funds to pay for services. And even at that point, some of them can't even sell what they produced. Because if you recall, particularly the rice sector was dominated by imports. Even the few integrated bills we used to have, they would simply import, clean and bag. So initially that was a challenge. And these are 4 factors of what Anchor Borrower came to.
Okay, so talking about the Anchor Borrowers program, are there plans of bringing it back?
In fact, that's why, you ask what are the challenges. Yeah. I'm saying, so the suko that they had in that has immediately been taken away. And then it was compounded by the flooding. Because it's after they have sold, they will keep some and take some to the market. Now they lost everything. And the worst part of it, in fact, and that was one of the aspects that Anchor Borrower couldn't resolve, was the agri-insurance. Because usually that's what was supposed to plow back our farmers back to, at least they will be able to recover their costs, and then they will go back. Now they've lost everything. And since then, there has been no intervention. The Anchor Borrower is not available. The promised intervention or expected from the government in terms of maybe subsidized or even free inputs to go back, because they need to go back. After the flooding, usually some of them, especially in those around the river, water areas, they go to do dry season, and that will have mitigated some of that challenge. But having lost everything now and without support, and then it became a double jeopardy. So of course they've been facing that challenge up till this moment. No source of funding, no inputs, and then of course you have also highlighted that insecurity. But majorly, if those that could have farmed, because those that lost those lands to flooding, lost their harvest, it means those places are secure. So if they have had the support, they will still have gone back. Because this insecurity, much as we will not, I mean, we recognize it as a challenge, it's not that it's all pervading. There are places that are secure, and those are the places where this flooding devastated, because it means they had gone to farm. If it was insecure, they won't even have farm to have lost that. So those are the focus that, I mean, places that ought to have been focused. And then, of course, this challenge will not come.
All right. So, let's narrow it down to northern Nigeria. Northern Nigeria is known for farming grains and vegetables, but still, they are still the first people to be hit by food crisis in Nigeria. I mean, there have been states like Adamawa, Zamfara, and about 6 other states facing that issue. Why is that?
Well, majorly, like I said, these are smallholder farmers. Poverty, like Soludo used to say, is almost a northern phenomenon. Because these people have limited access, even their means of livelihood. That's why we call them subsistence farmers. Usually they go to farm, to feed their family. So even the balance that they could have taken to the market, is very limited. So, and now, like I said, with this climate change, increasingly they are losing it. Because, I mean, estimates put the land under irrigation in Nigeria just about 5%. So, and with this climate change, so long as we don't have access to, because there's little we can do to stave it off. So you need alternative sources of farming, mostly outside the rainy season, since the rains continuously washing. But they don't have that alternative because it's not easy. Even in places with low, very high water level now, you need to pumping machine, and then you need fuel. So, and they can't afford it. That's the point. So, part of, this government, one of their plans is to put additional 500,000 to 1 million hectares under cultivation. Because as these farmers, apart from the support they require, they also need access to land. Because what they already have is very small. You see, because we are, largely a polygamous system, with the arrival of any additional mouth to feed, and then of course that grows, he also, that same land that the family has, he will take a share. So the land keeps, in practical terms, keep diminishing. Shrinking. On the average, keeps shrinking on the average. So they need access to additional land so that they can expand production, and then from expanded production, you have increased income. And then you'll be able to at least fend for the family and take care of others. And then you'll be able to even possibly save. Because that is part of what grows the economy. Savings usually is what gives and then it continues to circle. But you are so limited with virtually no support. And that is why they are mostly, worst hit, since they depend largely on rain-fed agriculture. And the rain now is no longer friendly.
Okay, so that's actually one of the solutions that President Tinubu has actually said he will look into. Some of the challenges I've also mentioned when he declared food security, emergency on food security, and also rolled out some policies. Now, taking a look at some of these policies that has been rolled out, he talked about, release of grains and fertilizers. They talked about, clearing the farmlands and even forests to make more space for farming. They talked about irrigation and a lot of things. Do you think these are actually a solution to food security in Nigeria?
No, certainly. That declaration actually, I think, was well informed, because just like you have highlighted, those are some of the critical challenges that is facing the food system, and that's why we had that. So if another major challenge usually is proper targeting. Proper targeting. Exactly. To hit target is what is required, because these are very lofty ideas. When you release the fertilizer, who gets to distribute them and to whom? Even before that of the federal government arrives, states have been doing that.
Yeah. But and how do they get distributed as well?
Thank you. So basically, so long as, the greatest challenge we have in the agri space is actually, I think, commitment, having the right persons with the right, not only expertise, but also the commitment to deliver. Because largely you'll be disappointed that the ministries or those responsible for agri are actually those that appear not to even appreciate what it takes to solve our problems. Now, when this fertilizer comes, luckily we have a lot of commodity associations, and some of them are so well grounded that up to the cluster level. You have cluster, you have ward, and then of course local government. They have structures there. So, and we expect that if they will be at the center of these activities to a reasonable extent, it will get to the target, because that is our major challenge. Some of these very lofty policies, even the anchor brewer that we're talking about, part of the criticism is that a lot of it didn't get there. So, an additional challenge is that in Nigeria, and generally across the entire sector, is that there are no consequences. That is the major challenge of this country. There are no consequences for wrongdoing, for infractions. Because if people have done it and gotten away with it, why is the incentive not to for the? Because everybody will be waiting for the same opportunity. So, and those are the issues that we need to address. Get the right set of persons to do it, and then they will also be properly and effectively monitored. And where they go wrong, then reprimands and sanctions need to be applied. Because, and so long as we don't even revert to that, we can hardly get it right in any sector at all. Because once you can do wrong and get away with it, there is no incentive for others not to follow.
All right. So if the government, because that's what we're hopeful about, get to put this in place and it's virtually, hopefully get to the target. What about insecurity, though? It's not something that we will just, avert, just
no, of course we have
in one aspect. Because insecurity is hitting us, and there have been a lot of reports of, farmers being hated, being killed in their farmlands and all that. So what should the government... At the end of the day, it's all about the stakeholders, and not just the government, but the farmers as well, the bodies, the agricultural bodies. So what should it be, what should be done about the insecurity?
Well, in specific terms with insecurity, luckily in the last dispensation, we have a special unit called Agro Rangers. It's an aspect, it's a unit in National NSDC, CDC, Civil Defense Corps. Cool. So that is one place that needs to be strengthened, because they are specialized, they are specialists. While the conventional security are targeting these miscreants and these hoodlums, mercilessly, because that's what needs to be. That's one of the reasons so a lot of us admire Governor El-Rufai. For him, former governor El-Rufai. For him, you should take no prisoners. These miscreants can actually be dealt with. So we hope the security will rise up to the occasion and then mercilessly decimate them. But this specialized security agency, the Agro Ranger, needs to be strengthened, it to be properly resourced, so that they will focus in trying to give protection to our farmers. And of course, increasingly too, we also need to cooperate. Like you say, it's a stakeholder affair. We also owe it a responsibility to the government and to these agencies to provide information, especially information against informants. Because what has sustained this usually are the informants within us. They are the ones that connive and even invite this kind of person. So we need to, and then of course the credibility of the security, because part of the challenge is also, if you volunteer information, how safe are you? So it's all encompassing, but at least, to a certain extent, some of this security are within us. So you might be able to identify the credible ones and be able to profile information, because they are not magicians now. We profile information, so there is need to strengthen both arms. Strengthen these specialized ones so that farmers will be comforted to go back to the farm, and then they have, because since they are specialized, there's a relationship, has already been built, so they might be able to trust them and then even give them information, even if they can't reach the conventional one. Because that's another challenge I've realized here. Under the last dispensation, we had hoped that we have our own version of 911. Because you see regularly security give you 11-digit numbers. When will you remember that when you are in distress? So I'm surprised that even despite all these challenges, we don't have our own version that 3 numbers everybody can easily memorize, even children. Yeah. Because that's another means of volunteering information. It will have been made things faster. So I hope part of what this government will do to create that enabling environment that people can easily volunteer information that could be utilized by this security.
All right, but what about our borders? Rumors actually have it that our borders will be opened, in time. And I want you to tell us how, opening the land borders would actually impact on food security in Nigeria, especially when we get to import food items from neighboring countries.
No, the problem with opening the land borders, everybody has agreed that our lands are very porous. They are very large, And most importantly, it's not as if we are even importing from those neighboring countries. They're actually smuggling. Because even the rice, particularly, we want to give example. It's not as if importing rice is outrightly banned, but bring it through the ports. But they don't do that. You know, that's why if you check the world records of food exports or imports, Benin Republic here, you know, even imports more than Nigeria. So, but there is always targeted at Nigeria because they smuggle it in. Ordinarily, those imports, if they come through the ports, they will definitely not be cheaper than our local, because that's part of it. It's because when they smuggle them, they don't get to pay those duties. That's why some see them as being cheaper, because they are duties, they are levies that they owe if they come through our ports. So they would rather take them there. So and that was what precipitated the closure in the first place, because they were not cooperating. So part of what we need to do, and you know, RIFA not long ago had an MOU with Benin Republic to help them develop their own local rice industry, so that they can legitimately, because of under ACOWAS and African Free Trade Agreement, you know, if it originates from those places, so generally there will not be much of a threat, but we need to strengthen those borders. We need to, because smuggling is the issue, not necessarily imports. Because if you must import, especially with the value of the naira and the dollar now, it will be very prohibitive, and that's why they avoid our ports. So it's expected that the border communities will also, and that's another thing, because they are the stakeholders. A lot of the border, unfortunately, much as we see it as economic sabotage, a lot of the border towns see that as their means of livelihood.
So the border should be open, in your opinion? Should it be open or stay closed?
No, if it must be open, of course, you have to strengthen it. That's what I'm saying. You know, legitimate trade, there is no way we can prevent legitimate trade. Now, we are members of the Committee of Nations, but it should be done legally. That's what I'm saying. If you are actually importing, even through the land borders, ordinarily, if you pass it through there, at our land borders, you pay all the appropriate duties. So that will even, if they could do it legitimately, they won't bother importing, because ultimately, by the time it gets there, it will be too costly to compete. So we need to strengthen those border, you know, systems to ensure that whatever is coming will come legitimately. But most importantly, you know, most of this food comes from Far East. And so why do they have to go through our borders when we have ports here? So we also need to improve the system at our ports.
All right. Thank you so much for that wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Muhammad Ali Baba, for joining us this morning. All right, that was Muhammad Ali Baba. He is the Special Assistant to RIFA, President Pasture and Livestock Feeds Association, Member Interim Management Team of Federation of Commodity Association of Nigeria. Of course, and we discussed about insecurity. But don't go anywhere, and when we come back, of course, the show continue. Stay with us.